All right. Thank you for being here. Singer, songwriter, enterpriser. I think that sounds nicer than entrepreneur, but same thing.
Yeah.
Kingsley, how do you see songwriting as different than poetry?
Oh my gosh, they're the same, I think. I started writing poetry actually first because I didn't quite understand what songwriting was. Um, but I mean, I've taken, Maya Angelou's Still I Rise and put it to music, and I guess that's a song too. I think they're just different mediums. It's like painting versus sculpting, and whatever you choose is how you live. So I think they're the same.
Do you think that inspiration for each one comes from the same place? Like if you're talking about muses or wherever creativity comes from?
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen what's that Disney movie with Tina Fey and um gosh, why am I blanking on it? Hold on, let me look it up because I'm they were talking about the void of this place. Jamie Foxx was in it.
Was it an animated movie or
Yeah.
live action? Was it the one Inside Out with all the different
Oh, Soul.
personalities?
Yes, like Inside Out.
Okay.
Soul. Okay, so
Okay.
they were talking about this place that you go to that's like where he's just in flow state, and it was showed like a bunch of people there, like athletes, and you can get there in meditation, and I truly believe like that's where creativity lies. It's like they painted it so well. It's like this very glittery, obscene looking space where you're just like in your own bubble, and nothing around you matters. And it's such a cool flow state to be in that I think all creativity lies. It doesn't really matter where your flow is and what your niche is, but that's where creativity lies for everyone. And if you choose to go there, right? Because some people ignore it, and some people think that you have to be in these perfect settings to get into it. Um, so yeah.
What do you do to try to get into that area of creativity?
I used to harbor all of my emotions for songs because I knew they would be good, which is not I don't recommend for people. But I used to just like hold it in and wait until I could like sit down and write about it. Um, or like in the middle of an argument with like a partner, I would think in my head, "Oh, that's a good song lyric." I'm kind of saying that. But now I try to just let things come and go to me, and know that they don't always have to be like recorded for a record, or sometimes I can just write it and it doesn't need to be perfect. I read Elizabeth Gilbert's book that's about big magic, and that
Mhm.
kind of changed my perspective on how I feel about putting my creativity in parameters, and just teaching myself like if I'm writing a song, it doesn't have to go anywhere. I could just write it. And sometimes me and my best friend will drink a glass of wine and we'll turn on beats on YouTube and we'll just make silly songs together, just back and forth, and no one's ever going to see it. And it just feels good to just be in creative state, just because, not to monetize.
That makes sense. When you're just out and about in the regular world and you have that line or a couple words or maybe more than that that come to mind, do you write those down then or do you count
Yeah.
on trying to remember them?
No, I will pause someone up and I'll voice memo it really quickly. And put it in my calendar, like link the voice memo and put it like in my calendar at 8 p.m. to come back to it. And people know that. I will be like deep in a story and I'm like, oh wait. And then go and voice memo. Something like really quickly. Um,
I
yeah.
made up a word for that, which is mighty.
Ah,
And the idea is it's just, I have a mighty good idea that I want to write down before I forget it. So
yes.
mighty.
I am mighty.
And,
Yes. I love that.
and every time, like I say that, like I've explained it to my wife that if I start taking a note, it's not that I'm not paying attention. I am kind of not
I'm
paying
having
attention.
an
I'm just
yeah, but for a
dividing my
reason.
attention. Yeah, dividing my attention to this other creative pursuit for a moment. And I don't want to forget it. So I got to write that down. So I would
Yeah.
say, instead of saying, hold on, I just need to take a quick note, I'd say mighty. And I don't think it's ever worked with her because she'll always say, "What do you mean?" And then I have to explain it again.
And then it's gone,
So,
and then it's gone from there. And you're like,
yeah, then I just
no.
have to try to do two things at once and talk to her about this word we've talked about before. So it didn't catch on
Yeah,
as
you should
well as
have
I
a
thought it
card
would for me.
with her and pull it out and be like, "This is my item ID pass. Here it is.
Mm,
Just
that's
give me a
good. That's
second.
good.
Give me a second." And
I
then
mean,
see,
it
it's
worked.
written on there.
It works with my dog. If I'm talking to my dog and then I have an idea and I say "Mighty," then the
He's
dog
like,
not
"Screws off."
does not ask me what am I waits. So it's it's interesting those connections of creativity when they come about. And one of the big things I think is when you have those ideas, you have to write them down because that's what writers do. So if you're a writer, then writers write first and foremost. You have to write it.
Yeah, I would say both
It's a
too. I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed with creativity and having to do the things. I've let myself like if I don't remember it, it wasn't for me, or it was for me, but creativity knows it'll come back to me. Um, I mean, I have hundreds of voice memos. I'm not going to get to every single melody that I think in my head, right? And so just reminding myself that like if I'm a creative person, if I live a creative life, it can come and go. It'll come back to me.
Do you visualize like a muse or anything like that? Or like, do you think about, because you said a great thing, which is people ignore the creativity sometimes. And I agree with that. And there have been times in my life where I've tried to ignore it and say, look, I'm trying to work on this other thing right now. And then I accept that I need to give the attention to that idea.
Yeah.
So I do it and then get back on to what I was doing. But do you visualize what creativity is, like the essence of it and what it's doing when you're not interacting with it? Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I like that question. I call so I have all of these different versions of myself. I have like my masculine version, my feminine version. I have this creative version, Kingsley, and then I like that's the on stage. And then I have this higher version of myself, and I call her Violet. And she's really really dope and really really open. And if I have to picture creativity, I would say that version that I see myself as. Because she's a big dreamer and really gets me out of this limited thinking and doesn't ever say like, oh, that note's weird and you don't know. If I had to pick what my creativity looks like, I guess I would say it's closer to what I picture when I'm thinking about Violet, my highest self. um yeah, what a question. I feel like I don't know the muse part because it's so many things. The world is my muse, truly and utterly. My last 2 records were about complete heartbreak. It took you from the first song to the end. It walked you step by step of everything that I faced, getting my heart broken for the first time, and, like, coming to terms with all of that. So that really the muse was my own heart, right? I was trying to make sense of the world because I just fallen in love and believed everything about love. And then this new record is just about love and passion and just being cool with yourself and knowing that you really are everything and more, and no one can take or give that to you. And so I am my own muse in that. But that came from like traveling the world and getting to do really cool things in life and kind of taking it back to my music. So it's hard to say who is the muse because I was in London at the Eye. I had just recorded at Abbey Road, and this random person said like, "Darling, you look like a daydream." And I was like putting that in my song. It's beautiful. Like, what? It's awesome. I was on a cloud. I'm like, just recorded at Abbey Road. Someone thinks I'm a daydream. So yeah, I think every moment feels like a muse to me.
Okay. So what do you do to connect to that space? I know we talked a little about that before, but is there, from traveling around and just interacting with creativity and getting to know yourself and how you
Yeah.
do create, how do you get into that mood, and do you have to have a certain time and place to do that?
Well, I'm gonna go back to the soul because this has been my learning thing. When I first recorded, like when I first sang at a talent show, I was in fourth grade and I sang "Fallen" by Alicia Keys, which a fourth grader should never sing because it was not that good. I did not win, and that's okay.
Hmm.
But I remember closing my eyes and like the breath right before I sang the first note, everything was still in the world. It was like this moment of time that was between time and space, and nothing mattered and everything mattered, and I felt home, like that breath. And I've just been chasing that at every moment in life, and sometimes that breath comes from, I used to I own a branding agency, so like if I'm building a website and I see the client like look at their stuff and they take a breath and they're about to smile, I feel that moment. Or if I'm writing a song and I'm showing my friend and she's laughing at a part that like is a little funny joke and I can see her breath as she's about to laugh, I feel that again. So I think the creativity that I'm like trying to get myself into, it's really just chasing that feeling. So that's why I said Soul did such a good job of putting everyone in their own little bubbles in this beautiful space where nothing matters and everything matters. But it's just you and your craft, with all of the other creatives around you that are on that same vibration.
When you do writing, do you have a specific time and place where you set aside to try to do writing on a schedule, or is it a mix of that and whenever the mood strikes, or is it just when the mood strikes?
It depends on who's paying me. That's really the truth. Because I do some ad work, right? So if I'm on a time crunch, I can't just be like, I just want to feel this, right? We have an ad to write and I don't have a lot of time and you got to get through. And I'm like, I wish I could be more creative, but you're on a time crunch. And also with my like the record, right? It cost me $10,000 to make my last record. We didn't have much time for me to be like, I just need to hear this for 15 more years, right? We're like, okay, you're getting to the end of your budget, make a decision, left or right, go which way. But when it comes, so that's like production, right? But when it comes to writing, I kind of just I do write at least once a week. I write way more than that, but let's say minimum once a week. But it's not always in song form. Sometimes it's a journal, sometimes it's a poem, sometimes it's a short story, sometimes it's a song, right? I make sure I write once a week minimum. Just to write, because I got a lot to say. Turns out, turns out I have a lot to say. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like one of those good problems where you have a
She
lot of
talked too
information.
much. The report card said talk too much. I could see why. Yes, yes.
Hmm. Well, then when you started doing music and then you went to school for music, did that change your understanding or relationship with it? And if so, how?
Yeah, it made me grasp the structure of it more, right? So I have an opera degree, so I'm classically trained. But when I went to college, I had made my first song. It was like with Live 8. I don't even know if they use that recording program anymore. Like Live 8 and GarageBand, playing the strings, playing the piano. My sister mixes it. We don't know what mixing is back then. You know, my uncle listened to it. He's like, "This is pretty good. I'll throw a master on there. Like, you can put it on iTunes." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm famous." So when I got to college, learning like really about orchestral structures and placement of body, like where you can hold the sound. Then when it comes to like microphones, like what microphone you can choose for different instruments, right? So it makes you a master in this craft, and it makes you ask the question, well, now that I know the rules, how can I bend these rules? Right. That's the best part. And from college, I was a big rule breaker, especially as a classical major. Like I sang Hosier on my final senior project. I did not care. I'm singing pop. I don't care. So college was really cool for me to like see how the world was laid out and be like, okay, but if I go this way, am I going to get in trouble? Because I'm going to go this way. And that's kind of what I do with my music to this day, right? People assume like you do R&B and you do neon soul, and I'm like, I do pop. I love pop music. Why do I have to do one thing? Why can't I do this? And just continuing to break the rules and mold whatever I want in life.
When you write the words, do you write music with it, or do you write melody, or how do you get to the point where you turn the words into a song?
It used to be that the chorus would come to me so quickly. I love choruses. Choruses summarize everything in a song, and usually in a couple words. Disney Channel raised me. They did a great job. High School Musical 1, 2, and 3. The choruses are on fire. They figured it out. How can I say everything in 5 words? Let's go, and make it easy to remember. So it used to be choruses came so quick and so easy. Choruses to bridges, and then the verses would fall together. And I would hear it in my head and just run to my guitar and try to get the chords to match what I'm trying to hear in my head. And that was the first 2 records. And then after that, I started like playing with like people sending me beats and I'm writing to that. But for my last record, me and my amazing friend Tim, we listened to a couple songs on like Spotify, like a Dua Lipa song. I'm like, I want it to sound like this type of instrumentation. And then we'd like muddle along and then we'd write to that, like, just together, and we'd be goofing, and he would just bring the instrumentation, I would bring the words, and we'd kinda string it together on the guitar, run to the computer, and then make a quick demo with how I hear the instrumentations, and then I'd work it out from there.
Do you use mainly the guitar for like getting into the melody, or do you use piano?
Yeah, it whatever
Do
was
you write on
closest to me. Yeah, whatever's closest. It used to be a piano a lot more, but then I started traveling. It's really hard to travel with the piano.
Mm.
So it switched to guitar. But honestly, whatever's closer, I don't think I have a preference or a problem with either one. I enjoy piano because you can do all the synth sounds and kind of already start to hear what genre you're going to be bending into easier than you can with
Mm.
guitar.
Yeah, it, it's strange when you start, for me, when you start writing a song and then you have to visualize or try to hear what the instrument is, just what you said, and then you're thinking, is this a guitar song? And
Yep.
you try to write it on a guitar and you're like, no, 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 no. This needs the piano, which is still strings, but different.
Yeah.
And then you go, that's maybe it's more of a drum thing I need to start with. And you can have the in my head for different songs that have been written, you hear this started on the drums, or this started a guitar, or this started with just the words, and then the music filled in.
You can always tell where a song started by the acoustic version of it. That's my rule. So I
Mm.
have a bunch of like I did a full record and then we did the acoustic version of the record. Then I did another record and then we did the live acoustic version of the record, which totally took from Justin Bieber because he used to do that back in the day, and I thought that was incredible. Why do new songs? Why not take your old songs? But I mean, I've seen Halsey play one of her songs just on guitar, like um at the Grammys like small party that they had. And I'm like, girl, this was not made in this form. You could tell where the structure came from because it's missing so much space and you don't know where to put the space. Because when you start that way, the guitar is filling up all the space while you figure out where it's going, you know? So
Yeah, it's before I thought about music school. Like I didn't go to music school, but I've talked with people and worked with people that went to music school, and my understanding of it is much different now. Where before I was like, you don't really need that, and then I can see all the stuff you learn from that, and you go, wow, that maybe it does help to know the basics of the 12 octaves and all those other things, and you go, okay, yeah, it's a difference between a professional musician and a person that just learned it themselves.
yeah, it's the knowledge behind like how can you break rules if you don't know where the rules set? But also music school was created when, right? Before music school, people were just doing music. So I put a lot of timbres in between of like it's always exploration of the instrument. And if you're unafraid to try things, then you'll do fine, right? Because that's the point of it. I'm learning rules about people who were unafraid of doing things, right? Which is why I never
Yeah.
got into following the rules when I was there because I'm like, well, they'll write about me someday, which my college is making a degree based off of what I did because they were like, that's crazy that you did all of these things. I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. We should never follow rules. So I'm indifferent about people going to school and not going to school. I'm like, yes, study under a really cool professor, but also you could be the professor too.
Yeah, I think I can put it into a sports analogy better, which is when I started playing soccer when I was a kid in high school, I could kick the ball almost the whole field. And then when I learned how to kick, I could only kick it 50, 60 yards. And it was better, I think, because it was more accurate, but
Yeah.
I lost that certain set of wildness of just kicking it with that. And I think that's how I'd feel about writing and music and most things where you develop the professionalism, or you you put a lot more time into it than you normally would. It's more than just a hobby. It's you're really trying to understand it and break it apart.
Mhm.
In that there's a podcast and then a TV show I think was on Netflix. I can't remember the guy's name. It's hard to pronounce for me, but it's called Song Exploder, and
Okay.
he talks to different musicians about how they wrote their song, and he has the masters and like the original files or the beginning files of the song, and people are very excited when they hear it because they're like, how'd you get that? And It just takes each piece, and you don't think you could talk about one song for, I mean, the show is maybe 30-40 minutes. You could talk about it for a lot longer than that, but it is so interesting to hear even a song that you think is, that you might look at on the surface and go, no, this is just something they threw together. And then you hear the explanations of it. You're like, wow, okay, there's some art in there.
Yeah.
There's art mixed in.
Yeah, intentionality. Yeah. The analogy is really great about, not being so wild, being controlled. And I think creativity is never supposed to be controlled. And that's where we get into our heads, right? You learn all of these rules and then you do it this way, you do it this way, you do it this way. But who told that person to do it that way, right? There was no one. They were just doing it
Yeah, they learned it from somebody learned it from
from somebody,
something
from somebody, from somebody.
some time
Right?
ago. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good point to understand the rules, and then I like the way you say that, and then break them. Yeah, it's a good idea. There's a lot of things on YouTube now where they will strip away the music from a song, popular song or whatever, maybe not so popular, and then you just hear the lyrics or you just hear the music. And I remember as a kid wanting to just hear those simple track, like just let me hear the drums of this song, or just let me hear this of that. And the technology wasn't there then when I was growing up, but you can kind of listen to music and like say, I'm going to pick out the bass line and just listen to that and see what that sounds like. And it's different than the overall tune, but it adds to it.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was cool how you could take all those things together and come out with that thing that is bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, mixing, man, the mixing people deserve a raise because to have I have two great mixers in my life, and bless them because they get sent a lot of voice memos that I'm like, make it ghosty, make it poppy. And they figure it out because the language, the mixing barrier. Like, yeah, it's a whole thing, and it truly is like a stew where you're just going around, and you could get potatoes one time and it will change the flavor, and you could get meat one time and it'll change the flavor. And yeah, it's a cool craft.
Yeah. So then do you write, when you write, do you write mainly songs, or are you more poetry, or do you have times in your life where you can think I was into poetry more or into music more?
Yeah, I think poetry was, I'm saying like kindergarten was probably the last time that I call myself a poet. Cause then, from first grade on, I really I got my first, Usher CD. It was like 708 or whatever that one was. Then I got the Aaliyah CD. And from there, I was a songwriter. I don't think my songs were that great, but I was a songwriter. Could barely spell, but I was a songwriter. And so from then, I call myself a songstress. I think that's a little bit more freedom than just a songwriter. It puts the femininity in it because it's fluid. It's all of the things. It's not just writing the songs, it's creating it, it's hearing it. I'm a part of the mixing process. I'm like the main hand. It's more autonomy. So like I can hear, like when I'm finished with the song, I could hear every instrument in my head. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what everyone's gonna do. And then when I hire out, I give everyone's leisure, right? You're the guitarist, right? I don't call myself a guitarist. So if you come in and you're putting guitar parts down, I will give you like what I loosely want. But if you hear something better, say less. Let me step out of the way and let you do what you do best. Which has happened, like one of the lines on one of my songs. In studio, she just made this violin part and it was dope. And I could have never imagined anything better. So yeah, I think songstress, because that gives the full spect of what I do and I hear.
Very well, very well. What kind of equipment did you use when you were first getting into music? So this is before school, before all the professional part of it. What kind of stuff were you using? Like a tape player and a microphone, or a computer, or?
Yeah, I think I begged my parents for a mic, like begged. I have 7 siblings, right? We grew up very, very, very working class, right? Never had to want for much, but parameters. I remember begging them. And my dad came home. I don't know where he got it. Probably not Best Buy or anything. Probably like the off brand of Best Buy. I don't even know where. Somewhere in Chicago. It was like this horrible shirt. It literally had like missing space. Like there was nothing here for the microphone.
It's for the air.
Plugged it up. I think we got my violin from a pawn shop for like $50, strings, not all stringing. It was great. It was amazing. And I think my parents were doing that because we're not going to spend all this money if you're not going to do this thing. Like we don't have
Mhm.
a lot of money. So, and yeah, Live 8 was the program that we used to record. And I honestly, if I told people that, I know like old music heads would be like, use Live 8. I don't even think it's a program anymore, but it basically looks like GarageBand. But it's called Live 8. But just like a cheaper version of GarageBand. You can only do so many things on there. Um, and yeah, it was really, really cool to write a full song. You could still like drag the piano parts, like you could still edit it the way that you can with GarageBand or any of the newer programs. It was cool, and it was, I mean, I wrote my brother's rap. You can still hear, like, my siblings running upstairs because like, we didn't have, a controlled room. We're in, like, the basement. And
Mhm.
we're literally on YouTube, and we're YouTubing, you know, how to set your vocals in a song. We were really, like, DIYing it, figuring it out, and I wrote this piano line and wrote a guitar part. I didn't know bass back then. I couldn't grasp my hands around it. And my sister got drums. Like, it was a very crappy drum kit, and I just had to move the mic like that to the drum sounds
Mm.
because we didn't
That's
have
a good
mic,
idea.
you
Yeah.
know, you know. And it was very, very, very slept together. And then on top of those drums, we put electric drums to make it like sound fuller. And it's on YouTube. I can send it to you. It's called Lie Detector. You're gonna listen to it and you're gonna be like, "There's no way that this sounds this good," or you're gonna be like, "No, it sounds exactly how you said." It's like,
I mean, when me and my brothers started recording music or playing, we had guitars and drums, over the years. Like in fifth grade, I took drum lessons for school band, and it was not what I thought drums would be. It was a snare drum, and you hit it every, now and then. I was like, this isn't the drumming I had envisioned. And then learning on bass and then going to an acoustic and electric, but we didn't have programs back then because this is before all that, and we had tape players that you could record one track. It's one thing
yep,
you're recording, so you had to get it all right at once.
yep.
And then the recording is not that great because you're just going from the microphone that's in the tape player. You don't have a separate microphone. And then I remember recording some years after that. I knew a friend that had a track machine, like a Tascam 3-track, and I was amazed by that. And that's still just analog. That's not even digital. And now when I look at GarageBand or the ones that are in programs, I'm like, wow, that's so much easier, and you can pick apart the pieces so much more that.
Yeah, I mean, you can get closer to perfection, which kind of loses, the live effect, I think a lot of people still prefer analog, right? Because it really captures the liveness of the sound,
Hmm.
in ways that you just can't on it's close to perfect, or it can be perfect. You can edit it and mutilate it. I remember in my freshman year of high school, we got new Mac computers and we had Finale. Like, it was the first time. And I thought it was so cool because I'd been notating, and I'm left-handed. So I would have, pencil all over me, streaks. And I'm just on the computer doing notations. And I'm like, this is so cool. You could literally just put it on the computer. You could sing into your computer and it's notating it. And I was blown away. I'm like, I'll never use a
Hmm.
pencil again. Turns out I will for, the rest of my life. But that was my thing of like, wow, really changes it, and it makes it quicker. If I'm notating this quick, how much more can I do in life?
Hmm.
How much more can I score in a night? Which is great. I mean, and I love scoring. I love listening to songs and being like, oh, let me hear if I can hear all this part, and let me hear if I can score all this part. And then with Finale, I'm like, I can hear it, then I sing right into it, and it does it for me. That's crazy. This is amazing, amazing.
That's definitely the music nerd coming out in you right
Oh
there.
yeah, I'm
Mhm.
definitely a music nerd. I know
Yeah.
that I love music. I think it's, and this is Western music, right? That we mostly focus and practice. I love all types of music. I think it's crazy cool that, and music comes from out of nothing. Music comes, and it just blows my mind, right? You could have no hope in the world, and someone will just start singing, and everyone starts singing along, and it really is just this crazy, beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is a thing that transcends language. It's interesting to me. where you can hear music from different places and you get it. Like if
You
you're
feel
hearing
it.
drums, whether it's like Native American drums, African beat drums, like Scottish drums, and you're like, okay, I can get that. And then if you're, I know I don't know if you're still on the West Coast, but we moved from Virginia to the West Coast in 2012 and lived in Tacoma to Compton, they called it, and then Vancouver for a while,
Oh,
and then in
nice.
Salem, Oregon. And we were at the weekend market in Portland, and there was a band with a didgeridoo, and there was a lady dancing to it, and they had drums, guitar, and a didgeridoo. And I was like, "How's this gonna go?" And then she started dancing. I was like, "That's exactly how you dance to didgeridoo." I've never seen it before, but that's
But
how I
that's what
would
I picture
dance
in my
if I
mind.
started.
Do
Yeah.
you
So
remember the
then
band's name?
I don't. That was probably 2012, 2013 timeframe, maybe a little. We left the West Coast in 2017, but
Okay.
it's yeah, it's around that time. But so when you hear drumming, and it's different if you hear Native American drumming versus African drumming versus other types, and you move like that. I don't know if it's ingrained because that's what we've heard or seen before, like from the time we don't even remember, like when we're kids, or if that's just the way you move to that
The way
music. Like
that
you could
that
take somebody
yeah,
and play bagpipe music and they're going to dance like you
yeah,
dance to bagpipe music.
yeah.
So there's something
I
in the
It's a
resonance of
phenomenon.
music.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, something in the resonance. I would agree with that and say it's not that we know, right? You could take it's kind of like, the babies, how babies all dance, right?
Mm,
Nobody's talking to a baby to do this, but babies all dance the same way,
mm.
like, no matter what, they all do the first move is that
Yeah,
up,
the
down, that
little
up,
squat
down.
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so nobody's talking to the babies like, "This is the first one you gotta do." It's just how it is.
Hmm. I think one of the things when you were talking about analog versus digital, and you could probably get the same effect with digital, is the accessibility of music. And that sounds like a kind of a pompous thing to say, maybe. But then when I think about it, I go, what does that mean? Accessibility. That means, to me, it means I think I can play that. So you
Mm.
hear music that's simple, like a garage band or something, and you go, oh, yeah, I can get down with a power trio and I can probably play that stuff. Like if you're listening to the older Nirvana and you're like, oh, yeah, okay. I like how it sounds and I can imagine myself playing it. I can probably play it pretty easily.
Yeah,
And then you look at it even more and then you start to see how they use all the musical theory because they're musical people and not just people listening to it. And you go, oh, it's much more complicated than I thought, even though it's this trio going on. So
Oh my gosh, the most lied about skills in the world is singing and dancing. It's how, American Idol has made it this far. I don't know, I think they're on 19 or 20 seasons, right? They're as close to SVU in seasons, right? There's no other show that could beat that. And I think it's because of the dissonance, right, in what music actually is, right? Because there is the creative version of it, of just like coming and singing a song, and then there is the artistry version of it. And I think what makes really cool musicians is when they have absolutely nothing, their talent shines, and when they have everything, you can do a lot of stuff. So for example, I went to a festival where it like flooded rain, and they canceled everything. And Leon Bridge ended up coming out, and just him and his guitar. Nothing, because it's flooded. We literally can't. No shoes on. And everyone sat in pure silence. I have never seen thousands of people absolutely quiet, especially at a festival. And he just sang, him and his guitar. It was the most beautiful moment ever to remind people you could have all of the thousands of dollars of equipment in the world, but when it comes down to the creativity of music, you don't need much. You don't need much. And yes, it should be complicated in all of these things, but also anyone and everyone should get to do it.
yeah, that's nice. That's nice. And it's always surprising to me because you think these bands have put it through all sorts of different effects so they can, that's how they sound the way they sound. And if you heard them sing normally, it would just sound like you singing, like a regular person singing. And then when you listen to those where they break out just the vocals and you go, oh, okay, I can't do that. All right, that's some talent there.
Well, I
That,
sound just like Beyonce in the shower, with her just as loud as me. We sound exactly the same. You couldn't tell me I wasn't Beyonce, right? I think that's everyone's thing. They sound just like Beyonce. I think it's music. It gets really cool, especially like for my last project. I mean, I use this incredible studio. I mean, thousands of dollars of a studio, hundreds of thousands. Such a cool, every button and ding and bat. And it was amazing and awesome. But I've also made a song in my parents' basement, right? That I think is amazing and awesome.
yeah. I think it's good to have a mix of those things too. And then doing the acoustic versions of music, I always like that. And then the live versions, it's the first time I remember becoming aware of it, maybe when MTV started doing Unplugged. And then I think that was right around the time that Tesla did the 5-man acoustical jam, and they had all their regular music, but then they were just playing guitars on stage. They probably had drums too, but it was, yeah, I remember thinking, well, that's different than what I'm normally listening to. So it broadened my horizon. No doubt acoustic stuff was going on in the world before that.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I think it was Paramore's MTV Unplugged, and she covered "You Somebody." And I'd listened to Paramore a bunch of times, but just hearing Haley like that, I was so enamored. And it was like one of the first covers I ever did, like on guitar, like by myself, and it was because of that.
Yeah, I like that Paramore acoustic one. I mean, that's a long time after the first Unplugs that I remember, but I like that because just her enthusiasm for singing, and you can see the talent shine through, and you're like, oh, okay.
Actually, I think it was her. I think it was BBC that she was on for that one. BBC has a bunch, like Demi Lovato does an Ed Sheeran one on BBC that is, she does Give Me Love, and that one blows me away every time I see it. It's something about just coming back to the basics.
There's a particular one on YouTube that Kimbra does, the Australian singer. I think she's Australian, with Gautier, the guy that did Somebody That I Used to Know. I mean, he did other things too, but I think that was the big hit. And she's doing the accompanying vocals on that, and they split it to where you can just hear them singing. And when I hear that, I can't get it out of my head. So then I'm, that's playing in my head all day after I listen to it. And I'm like, okay, I like listening to it, but at a certain point, you're like, I got to do something else to get it out of my head. But yeah, I like hearing those, where you see the raw talent, and then you have all the industry and technology that comes with it. That's good too.
Yeah.
But just to know that under all that, there's something else, not just the creativity to write the music or write the words, but to then perform them I'm glad there's people like that out there.
Yeah.
Did your last album come out in 2021, or do you have one since then?
No, 2021. We're finishing up this next one. So my last one was Crying on Holidays. And I had a live record come out in the summer of 2021, but my last studio record.
Okay. Yeah, I've looked at the stuff on YouTube, and I think you have a website.
I do. We
We
legally have to. We have to have everything.
Yeah. And that had the acoustic sets of things. That was pretty cool. And then you have some videos too, how did you go about making your videos?
I love music videos. See, this is the creative in me. I love making videos. The Therapy music video was shot in the forest in January, and I'm in a purple dress just running through the forest.
Very
Rain,
mystical.
snow, yeah. So great. I love concept videos, and I anytime I get to shoot a music video, I'm going to do it because I think it's it's like changing the medium, right? I get to tell the same story just in this different format. And it's so much fun. I worked with therapy. The last 3 videos that I did was really cool. I worked with a Black female film crew, and it was cool to just workshop, with just a bunch of Black girls. I'd never had the opportunity to do that, especially like a camera woman. You cannot get a camera woman, period. So like a Black camera woman blew my mind.
Hmm.
And just getting to work with a bunch of Black girls in Portland and just make art and have no parameters. And yeah, so we made 3 videos together, and then we made like a documentary about the 3 where we did like the pop-up questions of being like, actually Kingsley cried 20 minutes before this because it hailed,
Hmm.
and then we made her run through the through the forest. So the tear that you see, that's not acting. She really is that cold. So,
Nice. Which, where did you film that? In Portland then? Or
yeah, so therapy was in a couple places. The Botanical Garden was one of
yeah, I
the
thought I
places.
recognized that. Okay.
Yes, yes. Forest Park was another one of the places. What was the last place? They're gonna well, the Forest Park was the witch house in Forest Park. Where was the last place? It was in, St. John. I can't remember the name. They're gonna crush me. I think it's just St. John Cathedral. You know what I'm talking about? The big bridge, the big green bridge. It's
Yeah,
underneath
yeah,
there,
yeah.
was the 3rd place. I
Okay.
think it's just called St. John Cathedral. I don't know. But underneath the bridge was another place.
Okay. I thought one of them there was a place outside of Salem, a little south of Salem, Oregon, that was like a enchanted forest type place, and I was like, "Oh, that looks similar." But I think that might just be
Oregon in general.
it's the look of Oregon. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Oregon in general. It was really fun. The only thing that was, yeah, we shot in January, which was just, rough. It was rough. So
Was it that cold? I don't remember it
it was
getting
the one,
super
like the
cold.
weekend we were supposed to do it, it snowed. Like, you know how rare it snows in Oregon? It was the
Yeah.
weekend we were doing it, it snowed. And I was like, there's no way the one weekend I'm filming, it snows here. Which was great because there weren't a lot of people in the parks.
Mm.
But yeah, just it was just obnoxiously Portland cold, and I don't like cold at all. So
Yeah, I think I remember being in we lived in an apartment in Vancouver, Washington, and I remember walking on ice in the parking lot for a day or 2. And then I guess we were in Salem for a few years. Maybe it snowed once. I don't know. But yeah, I guess it did have the more of the windy, wet cold, which
yeah,
is
I
it's a
think
little aggravating.
well, the fact that you walked on ice for a day is why I beef with Portland. I get it because of the fish that they don't want to salt, but I'm like, what am I supposed to do? What about me? Who cares about me and my body? Yeah.
You just stay inside. Just stay inside
You're
for those 2
supposed
days.
to. You're supposed to.
Hmm. So then you also have a beauty products line. How'd you get into that?
That came from COVID, actually. My best friend's mom used to work at this cosmetic store. It's like the only Black-owned cosmetic store in Portland. It's called Event Cosmetics, and Kathy has been there for, gosh, 15 years. She used to be in New York and in LA working for Estee Lauder and was like, I want to do my own thing. So she's like known for bridal makeup. She's the girl to go to for anything. And so one of the days I was doing like my walk like downtown because I lived downtown during COVID just to like get out of the house. And she was in her store and I'm like banging on the door. I'm like, a human, let me in. And I was just talking to her and I was a little bummed. I'm like, man, my record's done, but I don't know if I should put it out. I don't know how long we're going to be in this. Should I even put it out? You can't tour. So she's like, I know. Why don't I put a lipstick with your record? That way you can help me promote my stuff since people aren't coming in the shop as often and you can put your stuff out. And that spun into this 6 product collection that is just amazing and has gotten me to connect with so many people I would have never gotten the opportunity to connect with, and taught me so much more about what you put on your face, like skincare products. Like they're all natural, they're all vegan. I've learned so much about like taking care of my skin from Kathy, and it just was something that turned into something more, and I'm very thankful. And because of that, I've gone to like tons of markets where I would have never went to the market, not to perform, to just be there as a merchant, and have met so many people from there and have gotten to go to a bunch of events that I'm like, I don't think I would have ever gotten to go here, like New York stuff, because of my products. And it's been really cool. And again, another way to be creative that I just have enjoyed and embraced, and absolutely love.
Did you do you do that as like a partnership, or do you have your own like LLC or your own company for that?
Partnership. So it's the
Okay.
Kingsley collection by Event Cosmetics.
Okay.
So it's under her branch. I'm just the face of it.
Did you get to use your business degree in that then?
I use my business degree every darn day. You know, my mentor is kicking at his feet laughing. But I was like, I'm never gonna use this. Turns out I'm gonna use my business degree every day. Because I own, so I say I'm a brand agency by day and an indie pop artist by night. I still do branding anytime. But it's shifting. I do more like mini brand shoots with clients where they'll fly me in and I'll help them do styling for a photo shoot and I'll fly out. And yeah, it started off as websites because I used to code in high school. So I did that for a while and then 2020 happened and I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. But I want to be creative. And then I helped on a music video set. I shot my own music videos and I was like, maybe I'll do this. And then I started doing photo shoots and um, it's so I use my degree every day. And I like to be creative. That's the thing. So anytime I can jump in and be creative, I'm there.
Nice. What's the best way for people to follow your different modes of creativity?
Gosh, Patreon. That way they can pay for it.
No, there's that business degree coming up.
Just go to my website. Honestly, I think that will tell people where they want to go. I know it's so hard to say like TikTok because we don't know if TikTok's going to exist, and Instagram is changing to a paid platform.
Oh.
Yeah. So I would just say go to my website, iamkingsley.com, and figure out where you feel that you want to see me. But stream my music like Bandcamp if you want to pay for it, YouTube if you want to watch it, Spotify if you
Okay.
just want to listen.
I have your website and your YouTube, Instagrams, and some Spotify links that'll be in the show notes.
Yay.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about or cover that we didn't? Or
You
any
asked
ideas
great
you have for closing?
questions. These are great. I was a little stumped a couple times, like, what do I actually think about that?
Mm. Yeah, creativity is fun to think about, and just how it covers so many different things and really brings so many things together too, where
Yeah,
you could have topics that you wouldn't normally think had some sort of bridge between them, and then there it is.
yeah. I think I would just tell people life is really short. Um, so just make things. Like we are put on this earth to make things. It's in our innate nature. Just make it, whatever it
So
is.
are you going on record then for the meaning of life is to make things?
Yes, to make things. That's just who we are. We can't help it but make things. Make things. Either we're making it better or we're making a new invention of it. That's just who we are.
Okay, I can dig that. Well, thank you very much for your time. As I said, all those links will be in the show notes, so people can check those out for sure.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. I'll talk to you on the other side of this musical exit then.